Hey guys, I'm Val.
And I'm Luke.
And this is Raw Crimes, your new favorite podcast.
We're sitting down every week and diving into some of the craziest known and unknown cases true crime has.
So settle in, grab a drink, and join us. Hey guys, this is Val.
And this is Luke.
And we're here recording live for our second episode.
Hold up. Val, you sound so much crisper than from the first episode.
Yeah, I got new mics. Or I got us new mics. We got new mics.
Hell yeah, you know what that calls for, right? Champagne.
Champagne.
Okay.
We got champagne to celebrate our unofficial start.
Ooh. How much did this set you back on this Andre?
$7. All right. Oh my god, don't hit.
I want to dent the fucking wall here.
Don't hit me. Oh my god.
Oh. It didn't shoot off.
Yeah, that was underwhelming.
All right. We'll see if I can even get the pour sound in here. Some ASMR. All right.
It's too many bubbles.
Just say when.
When?
Okay.
All right.
Sorry you guys had to go through that.
So,
All right, Val.
think we're all set.
What do we have for episode 2 of Raw Crimes?
So, for our second episode, I'm going to talk about the case of Russell and Shirley Dermond. So, this case starts out with the morning of May 16th, 2014. A woman and her husband had gone into their friend's home, 88-year-old and 87-year-old Russell and Shirley Dermond, after entering through an unlocked back door to check on the couple after they hadn't shown up to their May 3rd Kentucky Derby party and hadn't been in contact since. So as they walked from room to room, they noticed that despite the eerie emptiness of the home, it was spotless. In fact, the only things out of place were the couple's unmade bed and Shirley's unfinished...
Sorry, our cat is just walking all over everything.
She just stepped on my computer.
Yeah,
It's fine.
it's okay. It's okay. I was gonna ask a question anyways after you finish this.
Yeah. Okay. So, and Shirley's unfinished crossword on the kitchen table. What's the question?
Unfinished crossword.
Yeah, it was like open on the kitchen table.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just gonna ask, like, how good of friends are these people? Because if my friends didn't show up to a party. And then what? Do you know how many days it's been since that party?
Well, so it's been 3 days, and they actually RSVP'd to go to that party, and they hadn't shown up, and no one's heard from them since. And so, I mean, they said that it was pretty unusual for them not to show up on a party. Like, this was a big, like, neighborhood. It's a gated community, and these are retirees. And
Do
so
they have cell phones?
I mean, they had to have in 2014.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, if I hadn't heard from him in 3 days, for me personally, I would have, like, texted them. And if they hadn't...
Well, they probably called.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just trying to ping and, like, try to figure out what influenced them to walk over to their house and, like, you know, look through the windows and check to see where they were.
I mean, I guess it was weird enough that they hadn't heard from them for 3 days that they went and checked on them.
Wow,
You never know.
I wish I had friends like that.
Well, you never know. They're nearing 90, you know.
Damn.
You never know. So it wasn't until the husband walked all the way behind their 2 cars in the garage, still in the garage, that he saw the unmistakable corpse of Russell Dermond. And he had been decapitated. So then the couple immediately called 911. So first on the scene was Sheriff Howard Sills and the police. And they were presented with a headless Russell and a missing Shirley, because Shirley hasn't been found yet. She wasn't in the house. And so investigators worked hard to find Shirley, including bringing in the FBI and cadaver dogs pretty much immediately and placing missing persons posters all over the Lake Oconee area in Putnam County, Georgia, which is their house was like had access to the lake.
Yeah.
And 10 days later, unfortunately, 2 fishermen uncovered the bloated, floating body of Shirley Dermond in Lake Oconee, almost 6 miles behind the couple's home.
Holy shit.
Yeah, she was found fully clothed with no signs of sexual assault, and she had been weighed down by 2 30-pound cinder blocks, which had been tied to her ankles. And it was estimated that she had been in the water for at least 10 days since the 6th, and floated to the surface after swelling to over twice her normal body weight.
Jesus. That reminds me of that zombie in season 2 of The Walking Dead.
Okay.
That was the most disgusting thing I'd seen up to that point, honestly.
Yeah, that was... Ew.
So, wait, did she float up to the top? Like, did she escape the weights?
I don't think she escaped the weights because she was found with them tied around her ankles, but she was just so swollen and decomposed that she's...
Ooh.
And this is in May in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So she was... That water was probably pretty warm.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we're going to go all the way back to 1950 when Russell and Shirley got married on December 15th. They went on to have 3 sons and a daughter and eventually 9 grandchildren. In 1994, Russell retired to Georgia with Shirley and left his 19 Hardee's restaurants to his children. They built their $1 million house in the prestigious gated community of Reynolds Great Waters in Eatonton, Georgia. And the house is in a very private wooded cul-de-sac. And I actually have pictures of the house, of their home attached, if you can see. And then we'll post these later on Instagram and stuff, so you guys can see too.
Yeah.
And it has a dock in the back as well for lake access. By all accounts, the Dermonds had no enemies and no reason to think that they wouldn't have lived out their retirements peacefully. So back at the crime scene, investigators began parsing the house for clues as to who might have done this and why. I mean, these were almost 90-year-old retirees, and aside from them like being semi-wealthy, like they had saved enough to live comfortably, it's not like they were living lavish in like a mountain or in a mansion or you know.
Yeah. I mean, 19 Hardee's. I mean, I know McDonald's owners. I mean, it costs like, I think it costs a minimum of like $200,000 to start a McDonald's, and they bring in well over $600K to $1 million per McDonald's. That's not Hardee's, but even if Hardee's is a fraction, they still had 19, so they're definitely well off.
Yeah, and I mean they had enough to build their own house for $1 million, and then also have enough saved like for their retirement.
You see, I've done the calculations, and $1 million is all I need to retire. I don't need any fancy house for that, but
so
that's impressive on its own that they had enough, $1 million, to make their own house, to build their own house.
Yeah, they did well. They were living comfortably and should have remained living comfortably. So anyways, when faced with the gruesome scene in the garage, Sheriff Sills knew that, quote, the decapitation had been done post-mortem. If you've ever seen an arterial wound, it spurts blood everywhere, and we didn't have that there, end quote. Now, around Russell's body, towels had actually been placed to keep the blood that was pooling around him contained to one area and to keep it from, like, seeping out from under the garage door into the driveway. And none of the Dermonds' items were missing, including their wallets, electronics, and Rolex watches. Like, they had all of their belongings were still in the house. And it was clear that whoever did this came for a very specific reason that they couldn't get or didn't get or whatever the reason. And it was very meticulous because, you know, one, like I said, all their positions were undisturbed and there were no signs of a struggle at all throughout the house. And two, the cut on Russell's neck where his head had been severed was very clean, indicating that the person or persons who did this knew what they were doing. And three...
She's not laughing at the decapitation.
No.
She's just burping.
I burped like twice in a row. And three, there's absolutely no usable evidence in the house. And the towels that had been placed, and the towels were placed to keep the scene from being discovered for as long as possible. So obviously somebody who did this had thought this out. And again, no forensic evidence has ever been recovered from the Dermonds' residence, DNA or otherwise, besides Russell's body. So.
And that's first-degree murder, by the way. I just watched a video, and they talked about first-degree murder, second-degree, and manslaughter. And I finally figured out... Okay, did I get it wrong?
Well, we don't know if it was premeditated. I mean, it probably was, but...
Well, yeah, but okay. Okay.
There's no way you'd do all this and just for, what, like...
Yeah.
randomly.
Just for the hell of it. Just
Yeah.
You eat the rich.
You just see them and you're like, oh my God. And in Shirley's case, the coroner concluded that she had actually died from blunt force trauma to the head with a blunt object, likely a hammer. And afterwards, her body was dumped into the lake. So at least, I mean, it's not good in any way, but at least she didn't drown tied to it, because it's horrible either way.
I feel like
but
just drowning and also being on fire is the worst possible death.
Yeah, or suffocating.
Yeah.
But either way. And her injuries were really brutal, with the attacks penetrating her skull. Russell, on the other hand, was most likely shot in the head, execution style, as there were no defensive wounds on him, save for a cut on his finger with some of Shirley's hair and his blood in the wound, which is really sad because it shows that he was probably, as he was fighting, he might have fought a little bit. He was trying to protect her, maybe grabbing onto her. Really sad. And he had gunpowder residue on the back of his shirt collar, suggesting that he was shot from behind. The bullet... So, investigators theorize that the bullet probably didn't exit his head, and so they think that the killer or killers knew that they had to remove his head, so to get rid of that evidence. So that's why he was decapitated, most likely. Most likely.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What's the difference between disposing of a head and disposing of the entire body, you know?
Well, they tried to dispose of Shirley.
Yeah. I'm curious why they disposed of Shirley that way and not...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And killing them both in different ways is strange.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, as we'll see later, people think it's like a mob hit or something like that, but why would they go through all that trouble of... And it also seems like they killed Russell to get him out of the way, to get to Shirley, or I don't know, who knows if they were, I mean, yeah, who knows. And since there was no blood spatter anywhere in the house, many have theorized that the actual scene of the crime was elsewhere, which, I mean, I don't even think that's a theory at this point, because Sheriff Sills definitely says that, and other investigators say that, because there was absolutely nothing in that house, because they went over every inch of that house with luminol and everything. So if there was blood anywhere, they would have found it, and they didn't. So neither the knife used to decapitate Russell nor his head have ever been found since.
Jesus.
Yeah. So the investigation began with trying to uncover the time that the Dermonds were killed. And Russell was actually last seen on May 1st on surveillance footage at his bank, transferring money in the drive-through lane, and then later at the grocery store, picking up Shirley's prescription and a couple of other items. Later on that same day, their son Brad spoke to his parents on the phone before dinner, and actually Russell was also seen on the golf course by his home on May 2nd, that next day, which was a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Sills found the couple's Saturday mail still in the mailbox, suggesting that the Dermonds must have been killed sometime between Saturday, May 3rd, around 4:30 p.m. when the mail gets delivered, and May 4th when they had failed to show up to the Kentucky Derby party that they said that they would be at, because that was on the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Some internet sleuths have actually theorized that they might have been approached sometime in the morning or early afternoon, since their bed was unmade and Shirley's morning crossword was left open on the kitchen table. So next was determining a motive for these brutal murders. Investigators first looked into their 3 remaining children, because, I mean, you have to right away.
Money.
In 2000, actually, their oldest son, Mark, who was 47 at the time, was shot and killed in Atlanta in a drug deal gone wrong. And initially, investigators suspected that this might have something to do with the murders, but the lead was ultimately dropped as authorities were unable to find a connection, since Mark's killer was still behind bars, and there was nothing suggesting that anyone he knew may have committed the murders.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else we know about that? Did you research into that crime that happened to Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it was just like he was trying to buy crack cocaine, and it seems like it was just like a run-of-the-mill, like, busted drug deal, and either his drug dealer or someone was, something happened, and he was shot.
Yeah, you're better off with baking soda at that point.
Oh, yeah, okay. All three of the Dermonds children have been thoroughly investigated and all took polygraphs, and they were nothing but cooperative, and they passed every single one. So investigators then looked over the Dermonds' phone records dating back to their college days and have found no leads or information that might suggest that anyone in their lives would want them dead. Since the Dermonds lived in a gated community, authorities went to check the security camera footage from the front entrance in an attempt to identify the perpetrator. Because anyone coming into the property would have to pass like one of those little like gate thingies. Mm-hmm. And there's a security guard usually there, and there's footage of everyone coming in and out. And so they thought they might be able to see something.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm not spoiling anything, because for the listeners, I haven't read the Google Doc that Val made. So I don't know what happens in this story. I'm just like you guys. I don't know what's going on. But do you know if there's any way into the gated community? Like, are they able to climb the wall, or do they have to go through that checkpoint?
I mean, I guess it's certainly possible they climb the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have lake access.
They have what?
Lake access.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's a big lake.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has public access to the lake, so.
Ooh.
Yeah. So when they went to go check on that footage, when they got there, however, they were informed that a storm had actually knocked out the security cameras a few days ago, and they had not been replaced since.
So there's some Epstein vibes.
So there's no footage since, since a few days before then either. Lead after lead led nowhere, and over time, as those leads diminished, the case went cold. And it still remains a cold case to this day. And it's actually the only case that Sills has not solved in his time as sheriff of Putnam County.
That must be frustrating.
It's very frustrating. I've seen a lot of interviews that he has done since, and he's still working like really hard to try to solve it, because it just keeps him up at night.
Mm-hmm. That show we watched, sorry, another tangent, Out something? Out? The one with, oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on it.
I don't know.
Oh my God, the Stephen King show.
Oh, The Outsider.
Outsider, yeah. It's got Outsider vibes, because hadn't the sheriff just like not given up on that case for the longest time because he wanted to get it solved?
Yeah, like he was even placed on leave and he still couldn't stop working on it.
Yeah, that was a good show, by the way. You should definitely go watch it. Okay, tangent over.
So, I mean, of course, being as crazy of a case as this is, with absolutely no leads that can help get it solved, there's a bunch of theories out there on Reddit and just websites with articles about this, and investigators have their own theory, of course. So due to just the nature of the case, like there's a bunch of theories, because how the couple was abducted from their home in a gated community without any sign of a struggle or break-in, taken to an unknown location that is yet to be found, killed by one of them being shot in the head and then the other bludgeoned, and then Russell taken back to the house and decapitated, while Shirley was weighed down with cinder blocks and dumped in the lake 6 miles from their home. Oh, and that's also, I forgot to mention earlier, that's also another reason that most everybody who looks at this case thinks that they came in from the lake. The person or persons who came into their house came in from the lake, because how else would you dump a body 6 miles in the lake?
Yeah. They had... were any of their boats missing, the victims?
They actually they had one boat and they sold it a few years back, but they still had that dock. So
okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
So the killer had to have come in with a boat.
Yeah. Because
how else are you going to dump the body out?
Yeah. And it's unlikely. I mean, it's possible that one came in from the front, but they would still at some point need to get a boat. And Shirley and Russell did not have a boat.
Yeah. I mean, just common sense. It just seems like they came in from the lake. Especially
if this was premeditated, or if someone was targeting them, it makes sense, like, to have a getaway vehicle. And their area is very secluded. Their house is very secluded, especially coming in from the lake. It's just a bunch of forest.
Okay. So. Yeah, I mean, I've been to a couple lakes in my life, but every lake house that we stayed at, like the neighbors, you could see them through the
Yeah.
trees. So are you saying, or
They had
you
a
have
lot of
pictures?
trees in there around their house. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the pictures for the listeners. You can see the pictures on our Instagram. We'll post that as well as some insight in text. But the house, I'm looking at it right now. It is just surrounded by trees.
Yeah.
Not another house in sight, so it's definitely secluded.
Yeah. And of course that's another reason why people think that the person came in on a boat, besides the fact that they needed a boat to get 6 miles away from their house.
Yeah. Hey guys, Luke here from Raw Crimes. I wanted to take this time to tell you about something very important. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. In fact, it's what Val and I use to bring you guys the best true crime stories out there. For starters, Anchor has creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more podcasting platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and the best part is, it's all free. It's everything you need to make a killer podcast, pun intended, in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
So all right. So the first theory basically is a mob or cartel hit.
Okay.
Yeah, a little out there, but I mean,
How far is Georgia?
Nobody
Are you
knows.
saying like the Mexican cartel?
yeah. Well, because so here, since Russell was beheaded,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very common theme in like mob hits or maybe cartel hits, I'm not really sure, but like to send a message. Some I've seen online actually said that in some cases, if it is a professional hit, they take the head and like show it to the person who ordered the hit as proof of like, I killed him. I don't know.
So headhunters taken literally.
It seems unlikely, but you never know. So yeah, and also since the head has never been recovered, they thought people have thought that maybe there's a hit placed on him by the mafia or the cartel. And so actually people have speculated that maybe he had dealings with one or the other while working in the fast food industry in Atlanta, which is where he owned those Hardee's restaurants.
Breaking Bad vibes.
Yeah. I mean, the theory doesn't hold much weight because investigators have found absolutely no link between Russell and any mafia or cartel.
Yeah, and maybe you don't know this, but did they like their Hardee's? Were they all located in Georgia
I
or
think
around the area? Like, did they live in Georgia? their entire
Yeah,
lives?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember exactly where they went to college. I didn't write it down, but they did live in Georgia for most of their life, in Atlanta.
Yeah, and just how much mob and mafia and cartel activity is in Georgia.
Who
I mean,
knows?
I don't know. I don't know much about Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably all information they don't want you to know either. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? Well, they know. Anyways, and they've also never even seen like shady business dealings in general in his history as franchise manager or owner or whatever of Hardee's.
Mm-hmm.
And it would seem like after all these years they would have found something, like some kind of paper trail, some kind of going over phone records. They went over like emails, like they would have found some kind of evidence.
Yeah, I mean, phone records all the way back to their college days.
Yeah.
Unless they were doing some shady shit in high school, which is
Like
crypto. 0%. Confident 0% there, listeners.
Trading Bitcoin.
Back in the day, yeah.
Oh, and if it really was just a hit, again, why would they go to such great lengths to keep the crime scene from being discovered?
Mm-hmm.
Why take them to another location just to kill them and then bring them back, or bring Russell back and dump her in the lake? Seems like a lot of work and really unlikely. And the Sheriff Sills actually agrees. He says that usually in a professional hit, you just get like shot once in the head and that's it. And they leave.
Yeah. I just don't get why they dumped one body in the lake and kept the other in the garage for people to find.
Yeah.
That's just strange to me. If, me thinking like someone who would commit such a crime, I would definitely dump both of the bodies in the lake. Cops, please. This is just all hypothetical. I would never. But I would dump both the bodies in the lake and like clean up the scene as much as I could. I'd go to the nearest convenience store and buy as much Clorox as I fucking could.
Yeah, if they really didn't want them to be found, if they were so scared of evidence, if they had cinder blocks and had all that, I don't know.
Do we know if they brought the cinder blocks, or did they have cinder blocks on their property that they could have used?
I don't know. Maybe on their property. Maybe they had them on the boat.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I'm 60% sure they would have brought them. But
yeah.
Are there other theories out there?
Yeah. Oh, there's a bunch. But yeah, so the professional hit seems unlikely, but the reason it does get attention is because there was a beheading, which is really unheard of in just your run-of-the-mill cases, and also since there was absolutely no evidence. Like no DNA, no blood, nothing. Another theory that some people have put forth is the gambling one. So since Russell was seen on surveillance camera or on surveillance footage from May 1st transferring money at his bank in the drive-through lane, some Reddit users have theorized that maybe he had placed bets ahead of the Kentucky Derby, and like the party that Russell and Shirley had RSVP'd to on May 1st.
Exactly where my mind went.
And maybe these bets had something to do with the Dermonds murders. I mean, the problem with this theory is that it's highly unlikely that in a community of retirees, someone among them would resort to savagely murdering and dragging around an elderly couple over a bet in a derby. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, unless the bet was just
ridiculous.
Yeah, unless someone who had less money than them just bet so much money and the victims could afford to lose that much, but the other people couldn't. That would make sense. But do we know what time they were murdered? Like, were they murdered while the Kentucky Derby was going on?
I mean, I think people theorize that they were killed after. Well, no, they had to have been killed before if they didn't show up.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think that theory would be debunked. But if they could allow to lose, oh my God.
Yeah, well, because nobody also
could afford.
Also, like, yeah, like if they had placed a bet and like won it, then maybe it would attract some attention and people would be like, oh my God, they have so much money that we just saw them win, or you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they were approached, I think I said like May 2nd, or no, May 2nd, like maybe late afternoon after he was seen golfing, or May 3rd.
Yeah, that for me at least, that theory is just out there. People, I don't think the police thought of that theory. I think that just common people thought of that just because they tied Kentucky Derby to betting, and they're like,
and seeing
people
him at the bank,
get their arms cut off for bets, whatever.
Yeah, and the fact that he was seen in the drive-through of the bank, like the 2 days before the Derby. I mean, yeah, it's unlikely. And also, the other part of that is who would have been at that Derby, or who would have been in contact with the Dermonds or have known the Dermonds. That wasn't like one of their retiree friends that lived there.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it was a gated community, so it's not like just a regular neighborhood.
I'd love to live in a gated community. Okay.
So another theory is that of the tire slasher. In 2015, Ryan Oliver Glenn was arrested. He's a killer mugshot, by the way. I'll post pictures of it. It's kind of funny.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, he looks high.
It's like there's something...
He's like, get the light out of my face.
He was arrested after he was seen slashing tires on almost 24 cars in Great Waters, in that community, in the retirement community. He was indicted on criminal charges, and authorities at the time said that they would be investigating him in connection to the murders of the Dermonds. Glenn's father, Sheriff Sills, said that Glenn's father has said that he's insane. And he also had a penchant for knives. He had a lot of knives. He was walking around with like a 9-inch knife or something like that.
Jesus Christ. Sorry if anyone's offended by me using the Lord's
Much
name.
like-
Again, I'm sorry.
Much like one would need to have to decapitate a man.
9 inches? I thought you said the decapitation was clean. Like, I was thinking katana when you were describing it.
It was clean. I mean, it wasn't like surgical, but it was
Yeah.
clean. It wasn't someone like hacking
Yeah.
at
yeah,
the
that
neck.
makes sense. Okay. Continue.
Sheriff Sills, though, later said that he didn't think Glenn had anything to do with the murders, and no news ever came from investigators about him. So we can assume that he didn't have a connection to the case. The author of this article, I forgot to say where I got most of my sources from. We'll post them.
We'll post where we get the sources. If you guys want to do a background check, there's a ton of research that goes into these. Val is amazing at that. Just we'll post them. We'll let you know where where do we post the sources?
Like the show info or the description or whatever.
Yeah,
Each
so like
episode.
show info, description, Instagram, Twitter.
I mean, we can. Yeah. We could put like
it's
a full
out
rundown.
there. Okay,
Yeah.
One of the platforms
You
is
find
out
it.
there. If you guys have any concerns about where we got our info, it's out there, and then you can judge us. You can critique us. We'd love that. Whatever. Like, okay.
So yeah, the author of the article actually makes
Burp.
Oh my God. It's very
carbonate.
bubbly champagne.
It's the carbonation. You know, it affects us. She's just being polite. If I have to burp, just shield your ears.
Just let it out.
Yeah.
They make a good point in saying that though Glenn likely didn't commit the murders, this theory allows for the possibility of considering that maybe this was committed by a random psycho who was also good at crime scenes.
Good at crime scenes.
Like-
good at knives. Has a 9-inch knife.
I mean, who knows, really?
Mhm.
Like I said, there's no evidence at all in this case except for the bodies to really give credence to any of these theories over the other. Just logic and speculation, I think, really.
Yeah. So another tangent. Do you know where these speculations are coming from? Are these mostly from random people, or are they from the police department?
So actually, these theories that I talked about, most of these I got from that one article. I think it was from let me see. I think it was an article called "The Macabre Murders of Russell and Shirley Dermond" on Medium.com. It was a really good article. I mean, it had pretty much everything about the case on it. A lot of quotes, a lot of like first time, like the author really did a really good job of putting the case together. And actually, all of these theories came from there.
Okay.
I'm not sure where she, I believe, got her information from.
Okay.
So, now for the last and most convincing theory. Well, not the last, because there's actually a bunch of other theories that I didn't go into, but they just seem kind of crazy to me. The most convincing theory and my personal favorite, that the Dermonds were targets for extortion or robbery for something that they did not have at the time or did not have access to. And this is actually Sheriff Sills' theory, too. And also he believes that more than one person was involved, and they had initially targeted the Dermonds because they knew them. Because the attack was so savage, it feels personal. You don't oftentimes beat someone to death that you don't know and then decapitate another person, and
Yeah.
it just seems very personal. And the fact that they were like kind of careful about handling the house, like they didn't want to make a mess, you know, they didn't want to
Yeah.
be discovered.
That's true.
They took careful consideration to get rid of any evidence.
It just, yeah, I mean, the point that you're kind of making, it just seems like it wasn't some random person that just came in and was like gung-ho about killing some rich people.
Yeah.
I feel like they knew these people.
Yeah.
They definitely premeditated it.
I think so too.
I don't know if they definitely did that, but it feels like that to me. That's my
seems more
opinion.
likely. Again. Oh, and also the reason that Sheriff Sills thinks that they knew their killers was because they also knew to approach from the lake and enter without being seen by anyone. If it was just a random hit, like random robbers or something, why would they... I guess unless they planned their attack out like weeks in advance and like scoured the area and stuff, then maybe they had known which house to target. But again, it feels like someone they knew.
Yeah, I'd like to know if the plans for that neighborhood are public, or
there's actually one of the articles that I read. It has like the Google Maps like map photos.
When was this? 2014.
2014.
Okay, so I was just thinking that you would need to know where they were or whatever. And I guess if Google Maps was available then, which it definitely was, I think it was made in like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
They could definitely like look at the lake and see the way to get to them. But why would you do that? Why would a random person do that? You have to know them.
Yeah.
It seems like that.
Unless they like staked it out and saw like two old people. Yeah. Again, it's just weird. And it feels random too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but who knows? Again, you never know.
As much as we like to speculate, we honestly don't know.
Yeah, I mean, no one does at this point. And he also thinks that whoever attacked the Dermonds that day wanted something in particular aside from just jewelry or electronics. And he actually brings up the idea that maybe the killers believed they had a safe or something else that only the Dermonds could access, something of like really great value.
Mm-hmm.
And upon finding out that they did not have it, they maybe became enraged and killed off their victims. Because they also knew that they had to be meticulous or they would be found out, because maybe they had a connection to the couple, maybe they left behind like a fingerprint, and then, it's kind of over. He also suggests that maybe someone had been harboring a long-held grudge towards the Dermonds and had finally acted on it, leading to such a hate-filled crime. Since, I mean, it was brutal. Like I said, Shirley's, I think they said like 3 or 4 blows to the head, and they cracked her skull. So it wasn't just someone like trying to knock her out. Like they were trying to kill her.
Mm-hmm. Do we know who went out first?
No.
Okay.
I mean, they don't even know where they were killed. People have speculated that they probably might have been killed on the boat, since where else really, unless they took them to like a house, it doesn't make sense. The thing that makes the most sense is they took them to the boat. They couldn't have killed them in their backyard. That would have been too.
But if they're
what?
If they're on the boat already, like, did you run out of cinder blocks?
I don't know. Yeah, why did they return him to the house if they were 6 miles out? Or they killed him on the boat, dragged Russell back to the house, and then took Shirley's body 6 miles out.
Unless it rained for like 27 hours before, wouldn't there be a blood? He was decapitated. Wouldn't there be?
No, well, he was decapitated in the garage, I think.
Oh my God.
But he was shot in the head.
Oh my God.
So
I'm trying to wrap my brain around this entire case. It's crazy.
It's definitely very strange because, like, I'm not saying that it would have made sense if they were killed in the house, but that is typically what you see more often with robbery gone wrong, or whatever the case is. But this was weird, and like the killer or killers took their time with them for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So that's weird. And again, any of these could be the explanation for what happened to the Dermonds, because, like I said multiple times, there has absolutely been no other evidence that has been recovered besides their bodies. And some have actually suggested that it could be the work of an unknown serial killer.
Yes.
It's possible.
We want another serial killer. Not that we want it, but
no, we don't.
I make stupid jokes.
And so the case will clearly remain unsolved until someone comes forward with information about the case, because there's just nothing to go on.
What year was the last year that something of substance came up from this case? Because it was the 2014 murder, right? Murders. It happened in 2014. I mean, when did they stop? Was like a year or two after?
Investigating?
Yeah.
Probably. I'm not sure. I know Sheriff Sills still kind of has it on his mind. He's still
Is he still hired? Or not hired, but is he still working?
Yeah, he's still sheriff of Putnam County.
I want to go help Sills. I want to help him solve this because it's his only crime that he hasn't solved.
Yeah.
I mean, good on him. Either that means a combination of a few things, or there's not a lot of crime, or he's just really good at his job, which I hope it's the latter.
I think it's all three, probably.
Yeah.
Their son Brad actually did a sit-down interview not that long ago, and he believes that the only way to figure out what happened to his parents that day and why is if someone comes forward, because someone has to know something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is not an old crime. This was in 2014. And he actually still has hope in Sheriff Sills, quoting, "If there's somebody who's going to get this thing solved, it's going to be him."
Oh.
I know. It's very sad. I also read in his interview, he actually talked about how he and his surviving siblings, they wanted to, when Russell and Shirley died, they wanted to cremate them and spread their ashes over Lake Oconee like they had wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But now they said that they don't really know what to do because it just feels wrong. Because that's where Shirley was found, and that's where likely they were killed.
Do you know if they cremated them, though? Do they still have their ashes?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. They might have. Because
That's
maybe
the right way to go, by the way.
Yeah.
Being cremated and just spreading your ashes.
And, I mean, again, Russell is still not whole. They still never found his head.
How would you?
Unless someone...
Have you ever heard of a case where a decapitation happened and they found the head that was missing?
Unless it was on the crime scene, probably.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, it's just such a smaller... It's smaller than a body, obviously, but...
Yeah. They could have buried it anywhere and just...
They could just bury it 3 feet underground and you'll never find it.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
And since they have nothing to go on, they have absolutely no clues to even get them started.
Oh, my God. I mean... This is the cynic in me. Before you brought up the interview, I was thinking, like, how could his kids have had anything to do with it? Because, there is that wealth aspect. Like, if the parents, are gone, I'll have my wealth sooner. But
I mean, again, it's always someone you know. Or not always, but, more often than not, it's the husband or the significant other or the kid or the parent. It's someone with a connection to you.
I mean, I feel for the kids in this case, and I don't think it's throwing me off. I don't think they did it, but just whenever there's that wealth aspect, like, hey, I'll get like $3 million at 47, 45, whatever years old, if my parents just croak.
But most often, if it was a life insurance kind of thing, I don't think they give out the sum if it was a murder. I think it has to be like an accident or natural.
No, I don't know about that.
I'm pretty sure I don't know for sure, but
yeah. What theory do you go with? That you lean towards most? I
mean, like I said, I think the extortion. Somebody also had said that, I saw a comment online, that they had said that maybe they would have been maybe they had intended on taking Shirley hostage. Maybe they planned to separate them and get more information from Russell. Maybe he had access to something in the house that they wanted. Again, a safe or something or information.
That makes more sense than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And these are all speculations. These are not fact. Yeah. I just feel like I have to mention that. But I don't know. That was just like an epiphany right there. Like, I don't know. It sparked something. It's like, that makes more sense that there were multiple people. Yeah. And they split the husband and wife apart.
They knew what they were doing for sure. Yeah.
And they were interrogating, I'd say, not negotiating, trying to figure out where this treasure was, whatever they were looking for.
And maybe Shirley fought. Maybe she fought back, and maybe that's why she was killed.
Yeah. Maybe they had two-way radio.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you heard of anyone else talking about this story, or is this something that you just found and you found interesting that you wanted to bring up tonight?
No, I actually heard about it like a year ago or maybe more or something like that on Crime Junkie. Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing about it, and it just, I mean, it just shocked me. Like, it's the fact that it's still unsolved, and the fact that it's such a crazy crime. Like, it's just such a horrible, horrible crime in such a, sleepy, gated community of retirees just living comfortably, and then this happens, and it's just...
It is crazy that it's a crime like this, a decapitation, and not a drowning, but a submerging after death.
But a bludgeoning.
Bludgeoning, and then submerging underwater with cinder blocks and rope in a gated community, yes. But, like, if you heard this anywhere else, even in inner cities and, like, where it's not as wealthy.
Yeah.
It's just the type of crime is unreal.
Yeah.
Who would have the DNA to do something like that?
I don't know. And yeah, I don't know. And I mean, to that point, I just remembered something from an interview that I read that Sheriff Sills did. He actually, so in Putnam County, since I think he's been sheriff for like 10 years, 10, 15, I don't want to get it wrong, but...
since 04?
I don't...
Like at the time?
Oh, no. It had to have been more than that.
Okay.
I think they said he was in his second decade or nearing his second decade or something like that. And he actually said that there has been, during his time as sheriff, there has been 10 murders. And these 2 he hasn't been able to solve. So again...
10 including the 2 or 10 in...
10 in total, and 2 Russell and Shirley that he hasn't been able. So he solved 8 out of 10. But again, only 10 murders.
Yeah.
In like 2 decades.
All solved though.
All solved.
80% solved.
Almost.
That's a B in my high school.
Yeah, and everyone tells him that. He said that his colleagues, his friends, they all tell him not to stress ttoo much about it, because I mean, he is a great sheriff by all accounts. Like everyone, like nobody has anything bad to say about him. But he just can't help it. It's those 2 that they just can't leave his mind.
And like you said, he's still working. So he's probably still working this case, I feel like, on the side. Maybe.
The last interview he did was in 2019, and there's actually a picture of him. We can post it. He's sitting at his desk, like in his office, and he has like this thick folder of the case and like a bunch of papers strewn about. Like he's just... It's so sad. He's just agonizing over it. And he's still clearly in contact with the kids, or maybe Brad, or, I mean, there's something there that he's still placing all his eggs kind of into Sheriff Sills' basket.
Yeah.
Because he knows the most about this case. And
I keep being brought back to outsider. I don't know. Oh my God.
It's
that's
definitely
a crazy
that kind of murder, like something crazy horrible happens in like this sleepy town where nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
There's actually there's this one scene in Gilmore Girls.
Oh my God.
Where Lorelai
watches Gilmore Girls.
I've seen it so many
times.
Listeners,
listen up. She has like 20 shows that she watches. When I first met Val in college, she was probably listening or watching like 3 to 4 shows and like re-watching them over and over again. She's up to like 20 now. She's gotten into anime. She still watches I don't know. But what's the Gilmore story?
I have like a schedule for when
She's got a schedule.
About to watch Gilmore Girls again.
We're on like episode 1 of some show, and then we started something else.
How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother. We watched 1 episode of How I Met Your Mother, and then we're like, let's go back to Silicon Valley. Let's go back to... We watched Game of Thrones last night. Let's go back to Game of Thrones.
Anyways.
Okay, Gilmore Girls. G-Girls.
Lorelai is sitting on the couch and she's watching like the news, or she's just like flipping through channels, and she's really bored and she wants to hang out with Rory, but Rory's studying, so she can't. So she's just like mocking the news, and she's like, a horrible town happens in a sleepy town where nothing horrible has ever happened before. Everyone's shocked. Oh my God. And I mean, yeah.
Where was that town located again?
In Georgia. It's Eatonton, Georgia.
No, I mean in Gilmore Girls.
Connecticut.
What?
Connecticut.
Connecticut. Is it a real town?
No, it's
It's the brainchild of the
Oh my
director.
God. Stars Hollow. Stars Hollow, Connecticut. Connecticut.
I'd love to visit someday in Hollywood.
In Hollywood, yeah, they have a set for it.
Oh my
where they
God.
filmed.
Wait, there was, what show was it? With the guy, oh my God. Sorry, I don't watch Gilmore Girls, I've watched a few episodes. The boyfriend, Dean.
Oh,
Yeah, what
Sam.
show was it? Where they're like,
Supernatural?
hey, we're passing the set of Gilmore Girls.
Supernatural.
Supernatural.
Yeah,
That was
it
hilarious.
was in one of the later seasons. They were like in Hollywood or something. He's like, and this is where the show of Gilmore Girls was filmed, and he's just like walking in the background as that happened. Like,
No, I thought he was like, we gotta get out of here or something like that.
no, he just like didn't even like. He's just walking. Like that's just happening in the background, but
Mhm.
it was very well made. It was very funny.
Very meta. Very
Mhm.
meta.
Yep. So that's our case for tonight.
Yeah. So we are about, I'd say 50 minutes in. It says 49 minutes, but including that intro, we're about 50 minutes in. Viewers, if there are any at this point, this is episode 2. We haven't shared this
Viewer.
on social media yet. We're waiting to get a few of you. But, I mean, we would love to hear from you. We want to make this show better for you. We want to keep going. We want to hear from you. Tell us what would make this show better.
Or any suggestions. Too.
Any suggestions, any comments, any critiques, any concerns, any et cetera, et cetera. We'd love to make this show better for you. I love. Sorry if that just broke your ears. I just saw the volume. I love hearing these stories. Val loves making these stories. Hopefully this is cohesive enough to be entertaining. We'd love to know what you want to see in the future, in future episodes. Maybe you say, Luke, shut up. You talk too much. There are too many tangents. We want to hear Val. Or maybe you say, Luke, keep these tangents up. I don't fucking know. They're great. You're amazing. I'm just stroking my ego. I'll stop. But we want to hear from you. Val, is there anything you want to say?
No, all I want to say is you guys can email us at
official raw crimes, plural crimes, at gmail.com. Again, that's official raw crimes at gmail.com. You can also follow us at the handle raw_crimes, both on Twitter and Instagram. We had raw crimes on one of the platforms, and then the other one didn't have that, so we tried to make it easy for you. So it's raw_crimes at Instagram and Twitter. You can follow us there. You'll see behind the scenes. You'll see our cats, Sunny and Iris. Sunny's looking at himself in the mirror. He's being weird.
And we'll post all the, episode descriptions and all the pictures from that and that kind of stuff on Instagram.
Did we decide, are we just going to share the pictures on Instagram? Or I feel like that's the best way to share it.
Yeah, I mean, we can do Twitter too.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
We'll figure it out.
Twitter. It's our
I
podcast.
don't know. Twitter's more of like updates and like what's going on, what like interacting with you guys. Instagram is kind of like giving you a picture, showing you what's going on, showing you our whatever. Do you know what the name of that plant is? It's named Tulum, but I don't know what the scientific name is.
It's like a dracanus.
It's a fucking
something.
dragon. It's huge. If you guys go look on Instagram, maybe you'll see it. If you give us enough support. If you scream, we need to see Tulum. I just burped. If you scream, we need to see Tulum, we'll show you Tulum. It is beautiful. Perfect.
All right. I think that probably just about wraps us up.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, we look forward to hearing from you guys.
Yeah.
Follow us.
You know what? I'm excited. We should make episode 3 sooner than next Thursday.
Well,
Yeah.
we can make it as soon as we can.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Look forward to having your viewership next episode. I don't know.
Bye.
Bye.